everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. I am here with my weekly wrap up. I have, I think, 11 books to talk about, so we're gonna just quickly get started. Had a pretty good week, although there is one big disappointing read for me this week to talk about. So let's go ahead and dive into my weekly reads. Okay guys, so I'm just gonna quickly dive in because it's really hot and I turned my AC off, so hopefully it wouldn't be running in the background, and I'm already getting hot in front of my ring lights. So let's go ahead and get started because I'm also starting filming this later in the day. I've had a slow start for my day today. So let's go ahead and dive into my books. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is The Rebel of Clan Kincaid. This is by Lily Blackwood. I read the first book in this series, which this is the Highland Warrior series. This is book number 2. I decided to read in this one because I read the first book for the Rake Appreciation Society's book club. And I was vlogging it because I'm trying to vlog new to me historical romance authors, never read Lily Blackwood, so I thought it would be a good try. And I enjoyed it. It didn't blow me away, but I was really intrigued by a character and kind of like where it left off, like as leading into the next book. So I decided to pick that one up and get started with it. So this one is kind of picking up right after the first book, and things are revealed for Magnus. Now Magnus, in the first book, just to kind of set it up, there is a, sorry, my computer, I have all my notes here and it was just doing something weird. Ignore me. Okay. So in the first book, we have this kind of like clan that was betrayed, and they were the Kincaids. They had this, and their father and mother were killed, and they sent their children on the run. One of the sons, the other two, I think 2 or 3, I can't remember how many sons there were. I think there was maybe 3. I can't remember, sorry. But the other brothers, he thought died. He doesn't know where they're at, and he kind of lived as a mercenary, and he was back to kind of get revenge and take his home back. And at the end of that, we find out that Magnus, who he kind of like viewed as, was one of their enemies' bastard sons. I'm doing a horrible job at explaining this. But Magnus was like one of the enemy's bastard sons. So, and he was kind of like, did some shady stuff in that book, but I still really liked him. We find out that he's actually one of the brothers, and he was kind of raised as this other guy's bastard. And so when he finds out the truth, he's very angry. He's lived this lie his whole life. He wants revenge against the guy who he thinks is his father, because he was one of the people that, because there was a few people that were like coming together to betray their parents. And so his plan is to kind of stick it out to try and find a way to, you know, go after him his way. So in this, we have Magnus and Tara. And Tara was actually the sister. So his, the legitimate son of that guy's father, of Magnus's not real father. God, it's so hard to explain. He is a horrible guy, and he was actually engaged, but his wife, his fiance, ended up dying tragically under suspicious reasons, we kind of think. We're kind of suspicious about how did she supposedly die out of nowhere of a fever. But that happens to be Tara's sister. And Tara was kind of left in like this convent, and she was always wanting to be, you know, actually accepted into society and maybe, you know, be able to meet somebody and all that kind of stuff. But basically her ward, he tells her she's going to be forced into this marriage with her sister's fiance. So she's kind of like forced into this, brought to their home and everything, and kind of like locked up almost. And her and Magnus actually have a run-in because on the way there she was attacked and they were almost robbed, and she was almost taken. So it was like this whole thing, and he rescues her, and he actually says he's like the son or whatever, because he is technically, at least he thought he was the son. And he gets a kiss from her, and then she discovers that he's not really her fiance. But so they were immediately like kind of like drawn to each other, and he really wants to help her escape and everything. So it's kind of their romance. I will say this one I didn't like as much. It was really like kind of just felt dragging in the middle of it. I didn't really connect to them as much. I really liked Magnus's character. So it had the potential, but I thought it was just a little boring. And I had this on audiobook too. So, and then there was like a third act reveal. All the stuff that went down with what happened to her sister was just so over the top and outlandish that it made me kind of dock it a little bit. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars and 2.5 chilies. Overall, I think this was her first books. So I think it's a pretty decent read, a decent start to a newer author, that when she first started at least. So I will definitely pick her up again. I do like this Scottish romance, and I really want to continue this series still. All right. So then I had an ALC. I had The House Guest by Penelope Ward. Sorry, I'm looking off to the side because I have my computer with all my notes this time. I'm doing it a little differently, so I apologize if it's annoying, but I'm looking down at my notes. So I had The House Guest, and this is by Penelope Ward. This was great. I had a good time with it. It's a kind of a cute contemporary. It ends up being, it's very hard to explain because I had a hard time even writing my review because I didn't want to reveal too much, because something happens like midway that flips the story where you think it's going, and it kind of changes where it's going. It's got a twist, and it makes it a lot more angsty than you kind of think it's going to be. So this is between Dorian and Primrose. And Primrose actually is, her aunt was like the newer wife to his father. And he's a very rich guy. He's like, so he's like his father dies actually at the start of this. So he has to come back to figure out the Vanderbilt estate because they are a huge name. It's very rich. It's this huge kind of like a mansion. And she had been staying with her aunt because her parents had died. So her aunt and this, her aunt's new husband, she was staying with them. And she's an artist going to art school. So like she's literally in this like a mansion painting like a mural like thing for her class like on the walls, and that's when Dorian shows up. So they kind of have a rough start at first, but she really has nowhere to go, and he still has to figure things out there. So he decides to let her stay till things get figured out. And so then we have like kind of like a forced proximity. They start to really hang out a lot, become good friends, but they're also really attracted. So I will say it felt like kind of very insta love at the beginning of this book, because everything seemed to be going right between them. He didn't really want to be in a relationship. He never had commitment before, and he didn't even know if he was like really gonna stay and all this stuff. So like that was like the thing that was the only issue, but he quickly really falls in love with her. So you kind of think, wow, this is easy breezy. But then something happens to kind of turn this book on its head, and they do end up kind of like splitting up, and then we have a time jump. And I don't really want to reveal everything that happened to make them split up and what's going on now, because I don't know, I just don't want to give anything away. I had a really good time with this. I thought it was angsty. It was a fast read for me. This was narrated by Teddy Hamilton and Savannah Peachwood, and I thought they did a fantastic job. As always, Teddy Hamilton did such a good job as Dorian, because he came off as grumpy, and then like he's very swoony, and he's really gonna try and get his woman back after everything that went down midway through this book. Sorry, I'm being super vague, but I don't want to like reveal the twists and what made it angsty. So I ended up giving that one 4 stars and 2.5 chilies. Okay, so I had another ALC. I was really busting through a bunch of ALCs because I have so many ALCs this month, so I'm really just trying to get through them. So you'll see quite a bit in here. But I had Playing with Forever by Erica Wilde. This is the first book in the Players Club Sinners series. I think this this club carries through from like a previous series, because it sounded like our heroine got like an invite from somebody else. You could tell it's kind of like she has multiple series going on. But this is between Chase and Andrea, and Andrea's had kind of a crush on Chase for a while, but he's like really pushed her way. He was in the military, has a lot of PTSD, and so he's really pushed her way for a while. But when she gets invited to this kind of sex club, which has a lot of like BDSM and all that kind of stuff, he finally just decides he's not going to really fight it anymore. And so they end up having this crazy night together doing BDSM. She's always wanted to do it. And so he kind of introduces her to everything, and she's all on board with everything that he's doing. So he was kind of surprised how into it she was. She had a previous boyfriend too that she got out of a relationship with, and he like made her feel like bad about her fantasies and stuff. So she ends up like, they kind of like know each other, they run into each other again, and they kind of decide that they want to have this BDSM dynamic continue. She still wants to explore that, and so they continue that kind of relationship. But like, you know, he didn't think he could really be in a relationship. He feels like he's got too much damaged issues, PTSD, but he can't really stay away from her. And then she also has a stalker that's kind of coming into the picture. So when that happens, he's very protective over her and kind of like moves her. He's like works in security now that he's like high security kind of company now that he's out of the military. And so he actually moves her in with him. And so they really start to fall in love with each other. I would say this is very spicy, really good. If you like BDSM, this is a really good BDSM. I loved the acts of care. They kind of did the aftercare. She actually offers aftercare to him too. Like, she's like, yeah, I get that it's important to give me aftercare, but you need it. Like, what do you need, you know, after these scenes? So I really liked that. There was also a really spicy spicy scene when they go get a tattoo, and he's getting a tattoo, and he does a little cock warming where she's blowing him and like keeping him in her mouth while the guy's tattooing him, and it was just really, really hot. So I had a really good time with this. The suspense element I thought was good, handled well, and it was a fun, spicy read. This was narrated by Sean Masters and Rose Diorio, and they're great. Sean Masters was so good. Like, he's so good as like the broody, sexy kind of hero, and he did a fantastic job with like the dirty talk and all that. So I ended up giving that one 4 stars and 3.5 chilies. Okay, so then I had an arc. I read Fang by Cal O'Reilly. This is my second book by them, and it's also the second book in the Lotus MC San Antonio series. This is an MC series, obviously. I really liked the first one, and I had a really great time with this one as well. This one has Cammy and Fang is actually part of the MC, and he's kind of given the job of running the strip club that they, you know, use for the MC. It helps filter, you know, launder their money, and they do also want like legitimate businesses kind of thing. And, you know, he never really wanted this job, but he'll do it because of his devotion to the club and what it's his contribution. And Cammy has had a really tough life. She had a lot of trauma from her mother. Her mother was a drug addict and prostitute and would really heavily beat her. She was almost assaulted by some of her guys, but never sexually assaulted, but it was close. But she really has a lot of trauma with physical violence because of how heavily her mom would beat her. And she is actually like the best stripper at the strip club. She's gorgeous. She's one of the best dancers. She doesn't love it though. She's doing it to help pay for college because she really came for nothing. And so she has a scholarship, but it only pays for so much. So she's, doing stripping, being a stripper to help pay her way. And Fang is just really attracted to her. He's drawn to her, and she is to him. She deals with like a lot of bullying from like the other strippers because she's like the best and gets the prime times and all that kind of stuff. But he's very protective over her. And eventually, like, things start to happen between them. He really steps in to protect her a lot, and he just really grows to care for her. And he pretty much goes right in and wants her to be his old lady. And what I loved about this is she didn't really fight that. She really was like okay with like, you know, wanting to be his old lady and being part of his life. She does have kind of a weird, almost stalker, somebody going after her type of situation. And there's a couple people that it could be, because it could be somebody, like, it could be somebody tied to the club, or it's like this guy that's been kind of stalking her and bullying her since she was a kid, and he wants to have sex with her. And so he's just doesn't take no for an answer. So she's had to deal with him for years. So honestly, like, it's a very low angst romance because they are solid. Like, they are really there for each other. I love their relationship. So it was really good. I really enjoy this because it's like super sweet heroes and like an MC. So there are darker elements to it. Obviously, there's like attempted SA in this. There's violence, murder, all of that kind of stuff. And like domestic abuse that she had to deal with as a child. So there's that kind of stuff. That's the darker elements, but the romance is super ooey gooey sweet. And I like that. So I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars and 3 chilies. Okay. So then I had another ALC, and this was 700 Senses of Summer by Maggie Gates. This is the second book in the Romantics series, and I think it's like centering around these like 4 women. I think it was 4 women or 3 women. I can't remember. I think it's 4. But this is about Jack and Aurora, and Aurora has actually come to this small town, beach town, because her great aunt left her this beach house that's kind of run down. It needs a lot of work. And she was actually like a best-selling mafia romance kind of romance author, but she's been in such a huge writing block. She lost like her publisher and like her agent, and everything has kind of gone down for her. So in the start of this, she's really shut down. She's really like kind of like the negative grump in this, and the guy is the sunshine. But she is kind of thinking writing is done for her. She's the end of her career, and she's gonna flip this house, like renovate it herself and flip it to make some money, because she's not in a good place financially either. And her neighbor is Jack, and he is a firefighter. And so he kind of steps in because at first he thought there was like danger with like a fire situation. She was barbecuing like really close to the house, and then he also kind of steps in to kind of help her with certain renovation projects, and he just starts to build this friendship with her. But she is very like closed off and like kind of not in a great place. But as their friendship like develops, like they start to kind of have a connection, and they were like making out one night, but he kind of immediately says like, I don't just want this to be like a hookup. Like, I want more. And so she kind of pulls back from it, but honestly, she's so attracted to him, and they have such a great, they're building a really good connection and friendship that it eventually, of course, is going to get there. And she gets like this, you know, better inspiration and all this stuff. There's also a side, like kind of like treasure hunt thing going on, because they're finding like these love letters and things hidden in the house. That's kind of, they're investigating it together. So that was kind of cute. Honestly, this was just a really easy, low angst, kind of cute book. It's a perfect beach read or summer read if you were looking for that. So I ended up giving that one 4 stars and 2.5 chilies. That one was narrated by Anthony Palmini and Rose Diorio, and had a good time with it. Okay, so then I listened to What He Doesn't Know by Candy Steiner. This is one of my things that I've been wanting to get to, this love triangle for years. But I'm always nervous to pick up love triangles, but one of my viewers recommended me doing a love triangle rec video, and I don't have a ton of them. So I decided now was the time, and so I actually got this on Libby. I've just got the second one, so hoping I can get to that in the next week or so, because, this left off on a cliffhanger and it really hooked me. So I really want to get to it. So this is about Reese, Cameron, and Charlie. And so Charlie has been married to Cameron for years. And their marriage is basically in crisis. They are not doing good. They had really went through this book deals with some really heavy stuff. But it felt so real, and it deals with a lot of grief and loss. And they had lost their child. They were pregnant with twins, and one of them, there was a stillbirth, and then the other baby didn't last that long, and died right after. So that's really heavy. And they've both kind of dealt with their grief in different ways. And so they're really not connecting. Cameron is like kind of just all driven and focused on his work and doesn't really spend a lot of quality time with her. So they're just not in a really good place at the start of this book. And that's been kind of going on, I think, for 5 years. She is a teacher, and a kindergarten teacher, and a new teacher is coming in to teach music. And it happens to be her childhood crush, which I think he was her brother's best friend, I think, growing up, if I'm remembering correctly. But she had a crush on him. But they had a little bit, it wasn't a huge age gap, but it was enough where when she was 16, he was, she was underage to him. I think he was like 20, 21. So when she wanted to kiss him, he didn't do that with her because it would have been wrong. But he always really loved her and cared about her and wanted that, but it was just wrong time. And he had like moved away. He went to like Juilliard and all that kind of stuff. And now he's back as the music teacher. And he also, which this is Reese, I don't know if I said his name. Reese has also been through a lot of trauma and grief. His family was killed in a mass shooting. And so he feels a lot of like survivor's remorse and all that kind of stuff. So again, there's a lot of heavy stuff. This one felt a lot more emotional and angsty and like heavier than like usual love triangles to me. So I think that's why I really liked it, because it dealt with a lot of heavier stuff. But him and Charlie start to hang out a lot. They are like kind of reconnecting, but they're like they have so much history that it's easy for their connection to lead to more. And she's just trying to like be like friends with him, but not push the boundaries. And Reese kind of is like willing to go there with her. But he wants to respect her wishes. And so they kind of are falling for each other. There's a couple kisses here and there, and they have to like she tries to kind of put distance between them because she does not want to cheat on her husband. She doesn't want to do that to her husband. She really struggles. But yeah, so that's kind of the dynamic of what's going on here. Now this audiobook had 3 narrators, so that cues you in, but it doesn't give you Cameron's, point of view till the very end. And so it's actually just really devastating because you get each of the characters, like nobody's a bad guy here. But it's a really complicated situation, and things get really toxic, like not good at the end, near the end of this book with what goes down. And so it leaves off on a cliffhanger. We are kind of like up in the air about what's going on with this trio, because she's falling in love with Reese, but she still loves her husband, and her husband is gonna fight for her. So don't know who she's gonna end up with yet. I don't know who my favorite is, because I was really leaning towards Reese for a lot of this, but then something's revealed at the end that made me not very happy with Reese. So I am very excited to get to the next one to see how this is going to go. So that one I gave 5 stars to. I think it was really well done. The angst was on point. It had me all up in my feels. I was very emotional with all like the tragic history of each of these characters. It was just very good. So 5 stars and 2.5 chilies. Okay, so and then I had another ALC, and this was Hollis by Ashley James. This is the second book in the More Men series. This is kind of like a cowboy series. Hollis is the brother of the first character. I can't remember what his name was. Sorry, I forgot. But I really enjoyed that one. I thought it was super cute. This one was kind of like an opposites attract age gap. We have Hollis, and he was the brother. He's a cowboy, works on the ranch. And then we have Ford, and Ford is a firefighter. He's the captain of the firefighter. And he was in a marriage. He's going through divorce. It's almost finalized. And so he's trying to kind of get back out there, but he hasn't really dated in forever. So he joins like kind of like a dating app, and he gets matched with Hollis. But Ford left his kind of profile private, and so kind of like not, Hollis doesn't know who he really is. Now he's actually like, Hollis's best friend works for Ford. So he doesn't know that it's Ford, but Ford knows it's Hollis, because Hollis is, it's his picture and everything. So they start kind of like having this connection on the dating app, and there's a lot of like phone kind of app sex and text sexting and all of that kind of stuff. But eventually Hollis figures out it's him. And so when they have like this camping night situation, he basically goes to Ford and is like, I know it's you, like, let's do this thing. But Ford is very like leery of getting involved with him, because Hollis is kind of like the playboy hookup guy, and Ford has kind of like always been in a relationship, and he just thinks they're very different. So that one kind of annoyed me, because I felt like Ford was fighting it for a while, but it was kind of understandable. I did think that there was too much like of on the app and sexting, and not enough of them together in like real life. I mean, once we got to that, it was very spicy. I do think there is a lot of spice in this, and it's a good time. I just wanted more of like an emotional connection between them, because I didn't fully feel it as much as the first one. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars and 3.5 chilies. This was narrated by Brandon Francis and Alexander, I think it's Sendis. I don't think I've ever heard him before. So it was a quick audiobook. I think I finished it in a day. It's really quick, easy, spicy read. So had a good time. Okay, so and then I finally read Crossed. This is the 5th book in the Never After series by Emily McIntyre. I've really like stalled on that series, and I needed to get back to it. So this one is a Hunchback of Notre Dame retelling, but it is very dark. So I will say, I think you need to check your triggers, because there's a lot of dark stuff in this, and it does deal with like religion and all of that kind of stuff, because this series takes like the villains, and matches them with the villains. So it's a priest, because it's like that priest that was obsessed with Esmeralda or whatever. So anyways, in this, we have our Esmeralda. Her real name is Amaya, but she is a stripper, and she uses Esmeralda as her like stripper name. And we have Cade, and he is the priest. He has just come to town. Her stepfather is like this huge billionaire, kind of rich dude that kind of like runs the town. He's a shady fucker. He's a horrible guy. He's basically had his sights on her and wants her for himself, and has done some really gross stuff. So just, again, check your triggers. And she has a younger brother that is neurodivergent. And so she is really protective and trying to take care of him, because their mom just basically kind of abandoned them with the stepfather. So the stepfather actually brought Cade in to kind of like clean up the town, even though he's a scumbag, but okay. And Cade is actually really dark, has dark urges. He like basically kills sinners. And so when he first sees Esmeralda as this stripper, he like kind of wants to kill her. And then he sees her as Amaya, and she comes in for a confession and all that kind of stuff. So he becomes kind of obsessed with her, stalking her, kind of sees all the stuff going on in her life. So he kind of becomes obsessed with her. But she actually gets accused of a crime she didn't commit, of a murder, and so she kind of has to go to her stepfather finally, and go to him for help. And so he's gonna like make her marry him. So that's kind of like the setup of this. It's really dark. Some content warnings as SA. There's self-harm, because he does like the whole, I forget what that's called, but where the priests beat on themselves, and he does that a lot. There's bullying of a special needs child, murder, and all of that. So I really enjoyed it. It didn't it was pretty dark. I didn't fully buy into Cade and the romance completely, but I do think it was spicy. It was good. It was definitely an interesting take. I've never read a Hunchback of Notre Dame retelling, so I found that really interesting. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars and 3.5 chilies. Okay, so then I had another ALC. I had the arc in ALC for Only for Tonight by Natasha Madison. This is the start of her new hockey series. This is the Only for series. This is book number 1. I think this is actually like a second generation, but I haven't read any of her other hockey romances. I just found Natasha Madison this last year when I loved the Dream series. Shattered Dreams was one of my top books of 2024. So I was excited to give this one a go. This is an accidental pregnancy, one-night stand, kind of friends to lover situation. In this, we have Jackson and Ariella. Ariella and him were friends growing up because their dads were best friends. I think their dads are both hockey players too. So I think that's the previous books and like a different series. But they end up kind of they've always been friends. They never really saw, he never really saw her in like a sexual way before, but they end up running into each other at a party and really hitting it off. And they end up having a one-night stand together. They do kind of say this is just one night. They live on opposite coasts. So they're on opposite sides of the US. And, they're just going to have a one night, have a good time. And unfortunately, or fortunately, if you look at it that way, she ends up getting pregnant. So she ends up showing up on his doorstep, unannounced, to tell him that she's pregnant. Unfortunately, he has his kind of on again, off again girlfriend there. He wasn't with her when they hooked up, but this girl is a leech and trying to get back with him. And he was kind of no, we're not happening. But she was over there, went up to take a shower, came down in a shirt. So she jumps to conclusions. So it's a kind of a rocky start to her telling him about the baby. But she eventually does, and he kind of explains the situation, and he had kind of ended things with her for sure that night anyways. But what's great about this is Jackson is 100% all in. He wants to be with her. It's kind of crazy how fast, he literally finds out that they're having a baby and they're already fucking again. So they immediately kind of jump into a relationship together. There's some obstacles along the way. A lot of it has to do with this stupid, shady ex-girlfriend, trying to fuck things up for them, and kind of a little bit of miscommunications, but it wasn't too bad. There were some a little annoying parts with that, but I was okay with it. That's why I kind of gave it a 4-star instead of a 5-star. I did really like this as an accidental pregnancy. We got, that seeing them kind of be in a relationship, how they're evolving and how they're dealing with, going to be having this baby together, telling their families and all that kind of stuff. So it was really cute. So I ended up giving that one 4 stars and 3 chilies. That one is narrated by Connor Craze and Savannah Peachwood. It was fun. It was good. It was low angst. So another good one from Natasha Madison, and I'm definitely interested in continuing this series. Okay, so now on to the one that's the biggest disappointment for me, and that is Konstantin by Lillian Harris. Now, Lillian Harris has been hit or miss for me for a while. I didn't really enjoy the last couple books that she's put out, and I feel like her third acts are always over the top, and really I see them coming from the start, and so I kind of just don't even know if I really want to be on her arc team anymore, because I'm just not, it's not working for me. So this one took me days to finish, and I really just couldn't stick with it. I was constantly picking it up and putting it down, picking it up. I just couldn't get into this. And why this was so disappointing for me was because Konstantin has been teased the whole last series. He was the character I was excited for. He's the head of the Bratva. He has sex clubs. He's this badass, sexy Russian billionaire. I was so excited for Konstantin. And this didn't even feel like the same character, because he becomes a simp for this woman that I don't even get why he's into her in the very first chapter. within 5% of this book, they're hooking up and doing sexual stuff, not full sex, but other things. And he's like obsessed with her. And I'm like, why? Why? Like, it needed to be a slow burn, her trying to work her way into his life, because I guess I'll give you the setup of this. Okay. So her name is Amelia, but she's basically under a hidden identity going by Tessa. Her brother is in prison. He was a cop, so he's getting attacked every day, and he was set up. And so she has been told, which she just believes everything she's told, I guess, that Konstantin and the Bratva, his organization, is the reason that her brother's in prison, and that so now she's trying to get a job at his like sex clubs to get closer to him to try and find evidence. Now she ends up showing to this, and he's like obsessed with her. She's so sexy. Oh my gosh, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And then he basically has her pleasure herself in front of him to try and get the job, but then he doesn't give her the job. And so then she has to come back again, and then he like has more sexual stuff happen, but he just basically decides he's so obsessed with her, she needs to be mine, I can't see her with anybody else. So he fires his personal assistant so that she wouldn't be doing sex club stuff, and that she would be close to him, and basically there we go. And there's very little investigation of her looking into his life. You know, she's not really doing a great job at it. It's basically like her and Konstantin constantly hooking up and him being obsessed with her. And I just couldn't feel any connection. I mean, if you're having them, if it's not like a one night stand situation that turns into more, but they're like immediately hooking up within 5%, and this guy is obsessed with her, why do I need another 400 pages? It was just drawn out. It was repetitive sex scenes. I felt zero connection to the characters. I didn't feel like this was the same Konstantin. I was just so let down by this. I was going to DNF it, and I decided to stick with it and give it a go to see if it got better. And so once I got like 60% through and I still wasn't really enjoying it, I just kind of finished it at that point. So I did not really like this. I don't get it. Like, and then of course the third act, over the top conflict, I saw it coming a mile away. So no surprises there. Now I don't know, maybe I'm in the minority on this, because on Goodreads, there's like all 5-star and 4-star reviews. I know me and Helen from What Helen Reads were chatting about this because we were feeling the same way. So I know we're in the same mind frame. So I don't know. Like, I'm just really, really disappointed with this. So I ended up giving that one 3 stars, and I think I was being pretty generous since it's an arc. And I gave it 3.5 chilies. So just pretty disappointed with it. Anyways, moving on to my last one, which was just a quick novella. This author reached out to me on Instagram to ask me to read her novella, and I thought, nope. I would love to, because it's a novella, easy, try a new author. This is King of Clubs. It's the first book, or the novella. Maybe she's doing other novellas in the series. I don't know if they'll be full books. I'm not positive. But this is the Outlaw Royals #1, and this is by Donna Costello. And this is like maybe 55 pages. And it was supposed to be an MC romance, but it didn't really feel MC to me. There was no dark content, no like MC stuff going on. It's just barely mentioned, and it felt like not like an MC romance. So that kind of threw me off. This is about Leon and Sarah. Leon is the president of this MC, and he's a single dad, and he ends up running into Sarah at this, like, when she's staying at this hotel or whatever, or kind of cozy state vacation thing, and they end up having a one-night stand and really hitting it off. And she's like always traveling. She lives kind of like a nomad lifestyle where she's a photographer and always in different countries. And so they kind of want to have a relationship, but it's basically long distance because she's always traveling. So they're just like FaceTiming and talking through an app. And so that kind of bugged me, because this is only 55 pages and they spent most of the book apart, but they were like in love, and I just didn't buy into that. And then my other issue with it was that it was told in third person POV, which I found very weird for an MC romance or a contemporary romance. You know me, I want my third person POV in historical, but like reading it as third person POV for this made me feel very disconnected from the characters, and it just didn't work well for me. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars, and it's kind of like one chili. Like the spice isn't really that good. It's really quick, and the third POV made the sex scenes kind of like whatever to me. So it just didn't flow right to me. But, you know, I have to be honest, I felt bad doing that for this author that I've never read, and it's just a novella. But, you know, for such a quick story, it didn't really go there for me. So anyways, those are all the books that I read this last week. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave me a like, and comment down below. Let me know if you have read any of these or excited for any of these books. And I will see you guys on the next one.